I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and
All
bad.
right, we're here with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and as always, I have an amazing guest that I want to share with you, Chris Salem. But before we get into that, I want to remind you about Warrior versus Zombie. So success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that all make us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life. Entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, authors, you name it. Entrepreneurs and any inspired leader that has a story to tell. And all of these warriors have a cause, they have a unique reason and vision and value, and today's guest is no exception. Chris Salem is an incredible warrior. He's a CEO, an executive coach, a world-class speaker, award-winning author, certified mindset expert, radio show host, and media personality. He's a wellness advocate, and his book, Master Your Inner Critic, resolved the root cause and create prosperity, went international bestseller in 2016. He also co-authored the recent edition of Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield. And his weekly radio show, Sustainable Success, is part of the Voice America Influencers Challenge, or channel. Chris has worked with organizations such as JP Morgan Chase, Ralph Lauren, Microchip Technologies, Anthem, Raytheon, Pratt Whitney, United Healthcare, GE Research, U.S. Senate, U.S. Census Bureau, Hubbell Corporation, and NYPD Forensics Department, including universities such as the University of Hartford, Bay Path University, Westchester Community College, and Worcester State University. And he spoke on overcoming limited beliefs for peak performance at Harvard University's faculty club, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more he could share with us and probably will today. Chris Salem, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. Thanks for being here today.
David, it is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
So, first of all, I think we ought to clear the deck here. So you're in New York.
Yes.
And I'm in Dallas.
This isn't actually, well, I'm in New York, but not actually, this isn't my view.
Well, I was going to say we'd have to spend a little bit more time getting together if that's your office. I spent a lot of time in New York City, and having a beautiful view like that out the back of my that I'm looking with my office or my home, I know it would have a high price tag on it.
Yeah. Yeah, this definitely would. But I am in the New York City area, just outside of it, in Connecticut, about 1 hour north of New York City.
Okay, so yeah, I know that general area very well, and it's much closer for people that aren't that are in the Midwest that don't live out that way than you realize. So
yeah.
I've actually stayed in New York because I liked staying in the city of New York back in the day when I traveled all the time, and liked going to clients that I had just on the Connecticut side, but commuting back into New York City at the end of the day rather than getting out of there in the middle and back. So it actually works pretty well. So you, before we got on this, you were just traveling. You were in Las Vegas today.
Yes.
How was that? How's Las Vegas compared to New York City in terms
Well,
of...
I'll tell you, the weather really wasn't much different, believe it or not. It was actually on the cooler side in Las Vegas. Not to say that it was in the 30s or 40s, but it was in the low to mid 60s, which,
Wow.
is a little bit on the cooler side for Las Vegas. And at night it would get down, maybe to the high 50s, low 60s. So that was a little chilly. For me, it was great. I mean, again, when you're used to, 30, 20 degrees in the wintertime here in the New York area, that 60s, I'll take that any day. But I was quite shocked that it was on the cooler side there. and literally just flew in this morning on a red eye, got here bright and early, and kind of operating here on very little to no sleep, but it's all good. I'm here and feeling good.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and I fully understand, having put 4 million miles on airlines during my corporate career. I understand those red eyes, and I also understand staying awake until bedtime, especially when you're changing time zones and coming back from a 3-hour time difference. You can't let your body dictate. You got to get back into the thing. So I appreciate that. Well, again, I appreciate your willingness to share with our audience today. Let's do this. I want to take a quick break because I really want to get back into this next segment where we hear about how you got from where you started, and you get to decide where that is, to where we are today, and then we'll take another break. So let's take a quick break, listen to a little of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There, and we'll be right back with Warrior versus Zombie in Salem.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race.
All right, we are back. And Chris, again, I appreciate you powering through your jet lag or your recovery from that trip to Las Vegas. But as I said before we took the break, I want to hear a little bit about your story. I want to hear the things that you've encountered and how you got from where you started to where you are today on your warrior journey.
I'd be happy to. And I can say that, as a warrior, we always have to go through challenges and adversities and setbacks. And that when we do reach that point where we have that triumphs that we achieve in our lives, we can be more grateful and more humble for those difficult moments that we've gone through. I would say, David, the first 30 years of my life were like that. They were constantly overcoming challenges and adversity and, going through problems. At the time, I didn't have the right mindset to deal with it. Growing up, my father was never usually around, and when he was emotionally checked out. And as I grew up, I felt like kind of directionless. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. I was a baseball player, but I'd reached the highest level I could go, and that was an opportunity to play for ASU, Arizona State, which was great. But due to my size, I didn't cut it. I was only 5'9", 200 pounds. I was stocky, but didn't have the height to continue to the next level. And with that, while that was, great, that I was able to achieve those certain things that got me to that point, other than that, I didn't really know where I was going in my life. So I kind of just defaulted to what, was, happening at that time, got into business. But, during that time, I didn't realize that I was operating from a place of low self-esteem and confidence. Even though I had it on the baseball field, I didn't have it in other areas of my life. And that was a result of these limiting beliefs. Now, I didn't know this at the time, that started during my child development years that were tied to my father. I had this strong need for validation that I didn't get from my father. So I sought it out in other people. And as a result, it led me down a path of codependent behavior and communication. I became passive and aggressive in my behavior and communication. I was a perfectionist. Everything had to be perfect. When I was passive, I would go out of my way to please and enable people I worked with, people that worked for me, or where I worked for, only to be disappointed or never to the level of the expectation that I had. When I was aggressive, I would place high expectations onto myself and other people. And when it went unfulfilled, I would get very angry and upset. Now, this codependent behavior and this passive aggressive in terms of how I did it and being a perfectionist was quite exhausting emotionally, physically, and spiritually and financially. And as a result of that, that led to 12 years of addiction that I dealt with alcohol, drugs, and sexual addiction. So my first 2 years of my life, I didn't have direction. I was clueless, a lot of anger, and just a lot of disappointment. But, I had a life-changing moment, and it was obviously my father, who was dying at the time at the age of 56 of cancer, that, really, where the light bulb went off. And it was like my father was speaking to me, even though he couldn't speak. He was on morphine. He died the next day. And basically the message I got is, if I could do it all over again, I would have done it differently. I just want to let you know that I did love you and your brother. I know I didn't show it, but it was the only way I knew how. See, I didn't realize that my dad grew up the same way. His father didn't pay any attention to him, and my father was simply repeating all that he knew. So again, not as a kid, we don't know that. We think we're not wanted, we're not desired, doesn't care. And it was at that point in time I realized that the only way my life and the way I did business that was going to change is if I did something about it. No matter what cards were dealt to you, it's still your responsibility to do something about it. I didn't know how I was going to go about doing it. I just knew that that was the first step, that I was going to find a way, and I eventually did. And this is what I do today to help others do the same.
Wow. Well, first of all, there's so many nuggets, so many things that you just hit on in that story. And one of the first ones that came to my mind was the self-observance and self-awareness. And I realized that wasn't something that necessarily was occurring at the time, but in retrospect, and now probably in your daily walk or your daily journey, it's something that's part of your success. I think that's one of the key success factors of any warrior, is basically knowing why we're thinking, focused on certain things, feeling certain things, and ultimately learning that. And sometimes it does take those events like the one that you shared with your father, the codependency, the addictive behaviors, unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, in the reality of human existence, we all seek the chemicals or to feel the way that we want to feel. Unfortunately, there's times that they're dopamine induced, whether they're drugs, alcohol, sex, now our smartphones, which aren't so smart all the time, whatever those addictive behaviors are, or just the addiction of attention, which you hit on very, very carefully and very, very honestly. So, yeah, I got to tell you, brother, your journey is not unlike many, many, many warriors that listen to this podcast. So is that basically get us to today, or is there any other things?
Yeah, I mean, it was a process. I mean, this took me a good 5 years to where I developed a process that it allowed me to get to the root cause of my limiting beliefs, that need for validation, and to really learn how to rewire my brain to think in a different way, using discipline and consistency through a daily routine that allowed me to eradicate those limited beliefs, and then in time develop from a clean slate, from a new way of thinking, to develop a success foundation that could allow me to look at things happening for me, not to me, looking at ways to shift away from the expectations to the outcome, to trusting the process in the moment, learning to operate in the moment from a growth mindset, not in the past and the future from fear, from a fixed mindset, learning how to control what I can. And that was my communication, behavior, attitude, emotions, and course of action. I was always caught up in the control I couldn't control. I was always trying to control everyone else's communication, their behavior, their attitude, their emotions, their course of action. I tried to control the economy, what was happening in my industry. And no wonder why I would lose and be frustrated, angry, and repeat those addictive behaviors over and over again. When I broke those chains and began to really focus on what I can control, letting go of what I can't, the magic happened in when you were letting go. And this is where things got better. I still had challenges. I still had setbacks. Matter of fact, I had even more. But as a warrior, we looked at it again as a process. We looked at it as a way of, this is happening for me, not to me. I look at the first 30 years of my life in business, failed businesses, losing jobs, failed relationships, low self-esteem, low confidence, as a gift. Because if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be here today to appreciate the success that I've had, but even more so to be the example and be a resource for others to do in their lives and businesses.
Wow. So, I mean, I got to tell you, Chris, that's a brilliant discovery in terms of yourself, but it's also kind of reinforces when I've talked to warriors throughout my own journey of it's a lot of times the things that we've overcome that become the value that we can provide to others. And first, the awareness, the discovery of that, and then the fact that you took action rather than trying to control things or think things through. One of the things that I encounter with a lot of my clients and a lot of the people that I'm trying to serve, my kids, anybody, is we're trying to solve the problem without moving forward in the action and taking the best steps that we can on a daily basis. Just like the song, the podcast theme song here, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's a process. It's a daily thing. You got to kind of have a vision of where you're going, as you say. But and the other thing I loved about your story, and we're going to take a quick break here in a second, but the other thing I wanted to say was your story is aligned with mine as well, in that you, with your father and the way the trigger for it, you realized, I think you made a decision not only that you needed to change your thought process, that's more the action that you needed to take. But the thing that I really heard there that you didn't actually say, which was you didn't want to end your life with those regrets.
Yeah, I mean, I was going down the same path as I probably would have been dead sooner than my father died at 56, the path that I was going, and how I was burning the candle at both ends and working hard, playing hard, and angry, exhausted, frustrated, and yeah, that anger would have taken me out. I dealt with some health issues in my 20s that here I'm in my almost my mid 50s, and I knock on wood, I haven't had health issues in years. So all goes back to the way we think.
Amen. And it's a beautiful thing. And so, well, I think we've gotten to the point where we are to today, and I want to hear about what you're doing today. I want to hear why you're doing it, the unique value that you think you're providing, and how you provide it to your clients. And then if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have? And so we'll take another quick break. We'll hear a little more from Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Warrior versus Zombie and Chris Salem.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth.
All right, we are back. And Chris, thank you for being so candid and sharing your story. And I know that sometimes warriors, we always want to focus forward. And you even said it in your story as you learned that you couldn't change the past, and that you're focused forward and you're moving forward and you're taking the action and all that. And that's a beautiful thing. But tell me today, what are you doing today? Why are you doing it? What value do you provide? And if anything were possible, what kind of impact? What's your future look like?
Well, for me, it's about being an example and being a resource. It's giving without expectation from empathy and kindness, not pleasing and enable. One is interdependent, one is codependent. So empathy and kindness means you're a resource and an example for others to do for themselves rather than doing for. So giving without expectation, receiving without resistance. It's my mission to help inspire people through that example and that resource, how they can overcome their limiting beliefs, to develop a success foundation, to be everything they desire to be for themselves, and what impact they would like to deliver in the world, whether if it's on a personal and or a business level. And doing the same thing with businesses, really helping them to really learn how to engage, come together, do it in an interdependent versus codependent way, and really make a difference in their industries and how they show up and deliver products and services that have a big impact. So for me, it's teaching people and businesses how to overcome challenges and problems, but seeing it as a blessing and an opportunity to grow and then become more creative with their solutions and innovations to move forward. So overcoming those limited beliefs. So it's my mission as an executive coach, as a business strategist, corporate trainer, professional speaker, and so on, to use those hats to help be that example, to facilitate and help others to do the same.
Wow. Well, that's a great vision, great value proposition, and huge life purpose. I can see all wrapped up in what you just said. So when you're delivering your services, working, are you predominantly doing a coaching basis? Do you have a program? It sounds like you've got a lot of tools in your kit to accomplish the mission, as you say, and the things that you're doing. What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, I mean, there are different programs that we have. We have what we call a Prospreneur program, how people can find alignment in their wealth and their wellness principles, finding that work-life harmony. We have a program called, Accelerate Your Mental Toughness, the ability how to overcome limiting beliefs. And just like an Olympian athlete, to embrace the challenge of pressure and to focus on what you can control only to achieve the goals that you desire to do. So all of these are just subsets of, again, building a successful life, a successful business, and making it more sustainable. We call it sustainable success. Doesn't mean everything goes great and perfect every day. It means that you're always seeing things happening for you rather than to you in your life and business as you move forward to make a difference. So those are some of the things that we're doing with corporations, businesses of all sizes, and with individuals, both on a personal and professional level.
So if anything were possible, doing all of these things and following this purpose with this program, what kind of impact, or what would you like to, I mean, are we talking millions of people? I mean, what do you have this kind of vision of impact?
We do. I mean, I also have a nonprofit called Empowered Fathers in Action, dedicated to helping families create interdependent family structures free from limiting beliefs so they can inspire their children to become more self-confident and have higher levels of self-esteem so they can become future leaders in their homes, communities, and businesses. So our vision is to see this impact millions of people. Can I do that by myself? Absolutely not. It requires one person at a time, one family at a time, depending upon what hat I'm wearing at that time. But it's creating other warriors and people that can carry on this message in their own way, incorporating it into their businesses and helping to share and teach this to empower others to do the same. So it's a movement. It can't be done alone, but it can be done through groups of people where we have shared values. We see the world in a similar way, and how we want to do good by being the example and being a resource for others to do the same for themselves.
Wow. I love that. I mean, being a father of 5 and realizing the impact that even fathers, starting with their children and their family and beginning to do that. And so I love that aspect of what you're doing. I love everything. I mean, we are so closely aligned in terms of our passions and things, not necessarily our background, but we've gotten to a very similar, we're not on the same path, but we're very aligned, and I love that. Well, let's do this. I could talk, I've already figured out I can talk to you forever, and I love the story that you're telling. But when we come back, I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want you to give me and the audience the key things that if we took away anything from this podcast, whether it's from your story or what you're doing today, or maybe something you haven't even talked about, what would you want us to take away? And then I'll want to hear, how do we stay in touch? So let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be right back with Chris Salem and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul. And by the grace of God, on down
All
the
right,
road
we are back. And Chris, as I knew it would, the time has gone way too fast. And for that, maybe you and I are going to have to do a little collaboration and maybe even have a mastermind. I think I'm going to get you
Absolutely.
to join my
Count on it.
mastermind back off in December, and that'll be a show as well. But tell me, if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you like it to be?
I would say that if you take three things, just know that everything that has happened in your life has happened for you, not to you. You've just chosen to look at it from a lens of a victim rather than something happening for you that you can learn to grow and become much more than you think you are right now. It's taking that adversity and those challenges and setbacks and turning it into something positive so you can be the example and be a resource for others to do the same. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. Use that strength and use those strengths, use that experience to be an inspiration for someone else or a business to do the same. I would finally conclude with living your life on this statement and operating your business from this statement. Give without expectation. Matter of fact, take expectation and throw it out the door. It's not even part of my vocabulary. It's not that you give to give from a place of codependency, pleasing and enabling, that you're looking for some sort of validation like I was in the past, but you give freely. Have boundaries, of course. You don't want somebody taking advantage of you. Give without expectation from empathy and kindness, receive without resistance, meaning that when it comes back from wherever it comes back, whether if it's a thank you, some form of recognition, millions of dollars, a couple, you find a couple pennies on the ground, it doesn't matter. You receive it without resistance. It's the flow of prosperity, the law of prosperity. Give without expectation, receive without resistance. When you can really, truly understand that statement and apply it every day, I can guarantee you in time, your life and business will change for the good. You'll see things happening for you and not to you.
Wow. Okay, I love it. I got to tell you, it's and the thing is, giving without expectation. So many people go into it, and you mentioned boundaries, and I had one of my mentors say that I needed to work on boundaries, and I've since fired that mentor. But the reality of it is that you've got to have faith in something, and I'm going to put my faith in people. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're going to be totally satisfied with their response, because you can't control their response.
You can't control it. Nope, you got to let go of what you can't control.
You got to go into it and do what you know is right and serve the way you intend to serve, and the monetization, the return on your investment, if you will take care of itself. And if you have the faith in that and just continue to on the journey, whether you feel it was a good day or a bad day, beautiful lesson, beautiful lesson. Love it, love it, love it. And I'm sure your clients enjoy you going on that journey of discovery and clarity with them as we go. Well, let me ask this question, and I know one of the answers, but so how do we stay in touch with you, Chris?
Well, I mean, the best place you can check if you'd like to get some more information is go to my website at ChristopherSalem.com. That's one word, ChristopherSalem.com. Also, check us out what we're doing with Empowered Fathers in Action at EFAmovement.org. Other ways you can connect with me would be at Chris@ChristopherSalem.com. I'm also on Be Connected. I'm relatively new, so check me out there. We also have a group called Sustainable Success. Feel free to join the group there. And also on LinkedIn. If you go to Christopher Salem, we can connect there. I just love to get to know you and get to know about you and your business and go from there.
Well, that's awesome. It's a lot of ways to connect with you. I think I'm connected with you on some, but I know we are connected on Be Connected on this disruptive and exploding platform, and I'm excited about you being there And I think we're going to be in some co-hosting for the event that's coming up in
Yes.
December. You and I both, and I loved the event we just got through last week, and I actually enjoyed your little talk there and had fun doing mine. So, well, anyway, for those that are hearing us, if you're hearing us on the audio platforms, you can find us on pretty much any podcasting platform. And if you really want to see us live, you can go to Be Connected, and I'll put some links in the information on this YouTube channel and other places where you'll be able to find Chris and or myself as we go forward with this. So join us again next week, next Thursday, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central. Be 12 Eastern for you, Chris, as we know. And we'll be back again with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. So we'll hear the final segment of Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, David.
It's been a blast.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.